and so we do not begin this process. And perhaps we conclude that transformation, and that is a word for holiness or wholeness or becoming Christ-like, is simply beyond our personal resources. We leave it to a specialized group of people. Well, there's another group who are called to be saints, but certainly not me. I'm not of saint material. I need a different fabric to be changed into that. Maybe we think those things. We leave it to a specialized group. That is, of course, the point when we think about transformation. We cannot transform ourselves, but we can be transformed. What is our part? Well, let's watch the following video clip. Would you cut the lights in the back there and let's watch this clip together?
Hey, where's Tommy?
I thought he was with you.
No.
Jack.
Tommy?
Go get him.
Don't stop. Keep playing. Here we go. Here's the fun part.
Did you do this?
So I thought that's perfect in the sermon tonight. We know that this video was staged, although it said it was based on a true story. That's interesting. But in any event, the point has a God message to it. You're bringing your little bit to the stage and offering it up allows the master to add on what is beyond you. But our bit is crucial to being transformed. Consider the story of Jesus. There's a familiar one, and it's a centerpiece of Jesus' teaching because it's found in all four Gospels. Every writer remembers this story. I'm going to read the version found in John chapter 6, and I'm going to read verses 1 to 8. After this, Jesus crossed over to the far side of the Sea of Galilee, also known as the Sea of Tiberias. A huge crowd kept following him wherever he went because they saw his miraculous signs as he healed the sick. Then Jesus climbed a hill and sat down with his disciples around him. It was nearly the time for the Jewish Passover celebration. Jesus soon saw a huge crowd of people coming to look for him. Turning to Philip, he asked, "Where can we buy bread to feed all these people?" He was testing Philip, for he already knew what he was going to do. Philip replied, "Even if we worked for months, we wouldn't have enough money to feed them." Then Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "There's a young boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, but what good is that with this huge crowd?" There's a huge dilemma in our story. A huge dilemma, a crowd about the size of those moving up from South America to the Mexican border going towards the U.S. Okay? About 5,000 men plus women and children. I think that's an interesting contrast. Imagine someone telling you, feed all those people that are marching up towards the border. Although in our current story, what I think is interesting in the news is that there are people in poor sections of South America and Central America feeding the people. Imagine that. Those who are poor feeding those who are poorer. What's the matter with the rich countries? We have more than enough. The poor feed the poor much more quickly than the rich feed the poor. But that's a different sermon. But in our Jesus story, there were no grocery stores. There was no group available to work all of this out. It was a wilderness condition, and there was plain hunger and a big question: who will feed these people? Immediately there was a deep awareness that not enough funds were there to buy food, if food was even available. There wasn't enough. Philip recognized his limitations. Our work will not be enough. He said, even if we worked for months in advance to prepare for this, even then we wouldn't have enough. That is, of course, really the truth about all of us, isn't it? We have limited love, for example. We have a limited perspective on life. We could write songs about our inadequacy, and many of us sing songs all the time about our inadequacy, only we sing the songs inside. We feel like we don't have enough, we're not good enough, we will just never quite cut it. But what does this recitation of inadequacy do for us? It usually blocks off help in a possible solution. For we finally say, I am not good enough, or I don't have what it takes, and then we give up. I have met many Christians, or people who wanted to be Christian, who said, I'm frustrated, I can't be a Christian. I cannot do it. Have you ever met people like that? I even had an aunt, bless her memory, who felt that the Lord could never forgive her because she was just too bad. She was just not good enough to be forgiven, which of course is a lie. Everyone can be forgiven. Our Lord says that. But we often inwardly say, I can never really become more like Christ because I simply don't have the stuff in me that will let me become that. And so we give up. Or we become Christians that are sort of just Sunday go-to-church Christians, but it doesn't really last through the week. Maybe we have a longing for it, but we just don't know what to do. Our story here could have ended in despair. The crowd could have become a mob, and a mob often becomes angry, and then there's ugly things that occur. We see that all the time. The disciples could have said, it doesn't pay to follow Jesus. Look what he brings us into. Dilemmas all the time. But in John's version of this story, there's a little addition that the other three Gospels don't have. It's interesting to see the difference here. Andrew must have heard the dialogue between Jesus and Philip. He too must have seen how impossible the situation was. But Andrew found this little boy. And this little boy brought what he had, 5 loaves and 2 fish. But the obvious conclusion is it's not enough. In itself, it's certainly not enough to feed 5,000 plus. But look at the turn of events. I want to think about this for a moment just to help us. What did it mean for this little boy to bring his lunch? Well, for one thing, thing, the little boy had to give up his lunch, not knowing what would happen. I mean, obviously he had brought this lunch with him. I don't know if he had collected it from Mama, if he was by himself with the troops, or whether he was with his mother and he had been carrying this particular little lunch with him. But he had to bring his lunch and let it go. Now, I don't know about you. I generally have enough food to eat. But suppose you were in the condition of many of the people in our world today, where giving up that little bit that they had would mean they had nothing. Then it would, of course, be a whole different situation. In any event, the boy gave up his lunch. And what it means really for us to advance in faith and to advance in becoming transformed persons, to advance in somehow letting the Spirit work in us to bring us more in tune with Christ's likeness, is to let go of what we have and give it up. I think that's the toughest thing in all of this. We hang on to things so much. Oh, we don't like to give things up. Have you ever practiced giving something up? I read one time, remember reading someone talking about the spiritual disciplines of simplicity, and the person writing this said you should once in a while give away something that you like and just give it away. Have you ever practiced that? Yeah. I can tell a story about that, but I'll leave my story out and just let you ponder your own stories. This little boy, in letting something go, in giving something up, presenting his little bit, which is the theme here tonight, lifting up his inadequacy, lifting up his limitation in the light of the huge crowd, transformed the situation. A turn came in the outcome of these events. For what could happen now? Jesus could take what was presented and show it to the Father and give thanks for it, and that transformed that little bit into enough. I find that to be a really significant thought. The video clip we saw portrays the setting a bit differently, but the end result is the same. A little boy, of course his parents had a panic attack, but we'll leave the parents out of the picture. A little boy gives what he can. He plays his one finger piece on the piano. One finger, not 10, one. It is childlike with all of its limitations. But once offered up, the concert pianist could take that one finger tune and make it into something more. A beautiful musical expression which embraced the entire audience, and do you notice everybody had joy? It's interesting also in the story, and I think it applies to the Jesus story as well, no one ridiculed the little boy. Nobody was picking on him, saying, you shouldn't be doing this. No one said to him, it's inadequate for a concert, said, you can't go there. No one got angry with him. So the result was, the master took what was offered up and transformed it. Now we can understand that in a picture, can't we? We get it. He offered up that little bit, the master came and transformed it. These two stories, the Jesus story and this little clip, reveal the heart, really, of transformation, of becoming, if you will, holy, although moderns don't use that word, but becoming more Christ-like, being transformed persons. The process of being transformed, or the way to holiness then, is bringing your little bit to Jesus and offering it to him. Giving it up. That is your part, that is my part. And the scripture says that is enough. But your little bit must be given up. You see, sometimes I think we get it in our minds, well, it's not enough to give up, so I'm not giving any of it up. Have you ever been there? If I can't do it all, I'm not doing anything. That's the sign of a perfectionist sometimes. If I can't, I remember Christopher sometimes on the soccer field when he was young playing soccer, if he couldn't get a tour in and hit a goal, he wasn't going to play. Well, you have to get over that. But aren't we like that as adults when it comes to being Christians? If I can't do it all, then I'm doing nothing. If I don't have a big amount to give to God, then I won't give him anything. If I don't climb the Mount Everest of faith, then I'm certainly not going to walk the straight level path. I think we have to get over that and learn to give up what we have to God, our little bits, and let him have it. Why? Because it opens up the possibility of God's working in us. Precisely there where we give something up. And then he can play with you on your piano. Children are easier at this than adults. Maybe that's why Jesus said we as adults have to become like children. Why? Because children are often interested in sharing what they have. Look what I can do, and they'll do some little dance, or they'll do some little thing, or they run around like Pascal, or they sing a little song like the other kids. They're always willing to share what they have, their little bit. Jesus said we need to become like children in that sense of giving things up more easily, offering up our little bit. That changes the music, and you are stretched beyond your limitations. You no longer can say, I don't have enough. Why? Because Jesus supplies what you need. If you don't have enough love and you offer up your pitiful little bit of love, guess what Jesus does? He pours in more of his love. We can receive the means to become transformed. And suddenly we're part of something more grand, more expansive, and more beautiful. All of these things change us. I could imagine that the young boy, so inspired by the concert pianist, decided, I want to go on learning to play the piano. And maybe the concert pianist said, well, I'll take you on as a student. You can learn from me. And this would, of course, require discipline on the part of the little boy, but the beauty of the music would be worth it. Can we catch some of the beauty of what it means to become more like Christ? There's beauty in that makes us want to learn more. How about the little boy in our story with loaves and fish? Was he finished with Jesus after he ate? Or did he follow after Jesus to learn from him? We don't know. But following after Jesus makes us disciples. Disciples who continually learn from him. And you know what? The more time we spend with Jesus, following him, the more it changes us. It transforms us. Spending time with Jesus is transformational. And the pattern for this transformation of becoming more like Jesus is offering up to Jesus what we have and what we are, and allowing him to do with it what he will. What will Jesus do with your little bit? What is your little bit? Well, if you give it up, you know what he'll do? He'll give thanks for it. Do you ever think that God is maybe waiting for you to give up your bit to him so he can be thankful for it? And in thanking, multiply it somehow? so it becomes qualitatively more than it ever was before? I can imagine that the little boy in our Jesus story was quite happy when he saw what happened to his lunch. Can you imagine how amazed he was? Jesus kept breaking the bread and breaking the bread and breaking the bread and breaking and it didn't end. And the crowd, they were content to eat. They were full. They had more than enough to eat. And the disciples, they were astounded. There were 12 baskets left over. And Jesus, he went off to be alone. He realized that most of the people had not understood the message. Well, the conclusion today brings these questions. Have we given up our little bit to Jesus? Can Jesus do with it what he will? Are we ready to keep on the journey with him? If so, we will be transformed. We will become more like the Master, and the end result is transformation.
Hey, where's Tommy?
I thought he was with you.
No.
Jack.
Tommy?